But I think the biggest mistake, or biggest, one of the big mistakes that we make, and dude, I can hear, I've had this told me 100 times or 1,000 times growing up. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself.
Right.
And I think they meant well by it, Richard, but boy, that is a flawed, that's a small way to look at things, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll be doing a lot of stuff, but you don't know if it's the right stuff.
Yeah. I remember this was told as a true story. I don't know if it is or not, but it was told to me as a true story that Henry Ford was originally a bicycle maker, and and he was a welder, like a world class welder, and he's out there welding his bikes. And a buddy said, "Man, if you hire somebody to help you weld, I bet you could sell more of those bikes because they sell off the shelf." And the way it was told was Henry Ford said, "Yeah, but I'm like the world's greatest welder. Nobody can weld like me." And
Right.
his buddy said, "Well, I tell you what, why don't you go hire the second best welder?" And Henry said that that's when the light switch went off in his head, and he went and hired the second best welder, at least in his mind.
Right.
And if it wasn't for the dude, if we did everything ourselves, there'd be no Ford, there'd be no Apple computer, there'd be no Nike, there'd be no Walmart. Hell, there'd be what would there be? There'd be nothing. So
Really.
yeah.
And it's
Hey, well, let me ask you this. And we're talking with Richard Smith here today, longtime dear friend, one of the leaders in the Freedom Club. And I would say you're probably the guru in the mortgage industry when it comes time to assistance and what do they do and things like that. What do you find, like how important is it that my assistant is under my roof versus working virtual? And then maybe let's talk a little bit about, like, if they're under my roof, they can do these set of things, and if they're virtual, is there a different set of things? Like how does all that work?
I kind of found that really, I mean, my thought process is they definitely don't have to be under my roof. Um, the only thing I could even think of that they could do differently if they were under my roof would be to actually handwrite notes. But now you can do that, via websites and things like that. So
Yeah.
no, I've always had assistants and team members that are remote, whether they're working in the Philippines or the processor working from home. So I've I've been of that thought process that remote works just as well, and in some cases even better than if they were under the roof.
You know what I've found is I have found, like, for me, actually having them remote, or frankly, even me remote, like one of us,
Right.
I get more done because I get less interruptions. And it's not that they interrupt me. It's I don't know if I'm in the office, I'll find, well, let me go see what Jim's working on this thing for me. Let me go see how he's coming along.
Right.
When it's coming along just fine. If he had any questions, he'd contact me. But I just feel like I don't know, I'm kind of a people person, so I just want to check in and see how things are going, and then I'll go bug Diane for a while. Dear God, she doesn't need that, but she's such a nice person. I'm just, I just find that as a general rule, we really do a lot better working virtual. I found the secret to
Sure.
that is that when we talk or we chat, we do a lot of Zoom, like, impromptus. Like I might say, "Hey Diane, can you meet me on a Zoom real quick? I got some, I need some help with something." And she'll say, "Sure," or, "I'll be there in 5 minutes," or, "How about 15 minutes from now," or something like that. And so we do a lot of Zoom. I'd say most of my work is by Zoom. And I find that when I do that, in fact, I got a virtual assistant. Her name is Bernadette. She's in the Philippines. We've been working together, I don't know, 5 years probably, something like that. And same thing, we meet via, she works my time schedule,
Yep.
Eastern time. So it's night shift for her. And we meet on Zoom. I've never met this lady, but, like, I don't know, she just become, I mean, she's a great worker, great assistant. But she's become a buddy of mine.
Right.
and we see each other on Zoom, and it's I think we get better work done virtually than under roof. Hey, I guess in like what can a virtual do here? Let's switch it a little bit. Let's talk about a I don't know what we'd call offshore, overseas, out of country. Let's call it that.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about out of country assistance versus in country or in state or in city assistant. Some of the pros and cons of that. What's something like that that are under roof or are in the U.S. assistant? What's some things that they would do or be different than our remotes that are offshore?
So different tasks, there's really not any different tasks that they would do that somebody remote would do. What I've found is the remote workers, and you mentioned um, workers in the Philippines, and they work the night shift. They're getting so much done because there's absolutely zero distractions for them.
Mm,
They're focused on work. It's the middle of the
mm.
night. They're always have a very good workspace where they can get their work done. So they get so much more done. And we all know, like you just said, in house we tend to kind of talk and see how other people are doing, and go to the water fountain, and you know spark up a conversation about what happened over the weekend. Virtuals, they work, they get things done, and so I've noticed that that's a big difference.
I had never thought of that, but dude, that is so true because likely if they have a spouse, they're asleep, likely. If
Yep.
they've got kids, they're likely asleep. If they've got a dog, hell, probably the dog is probably asleep, or the neighbors. It's not like they're going to get up and, run to the store on my time kind of thing,
Right.
because likely the store's closed, because 1 o'clock in the afternoon for me is their 1 o'clock. And again, they're working an exact opposite. I never thought about that. That's clever. Do you have do you have like I don't know, like a list or something of like on these virtual assistants? Um, like what's some of the activities they can do for me?
So I'll give you a couple of examples of a couple of my virtual assistants that work on my mortgage team. So first and foremost, they can make outbound phone calls for me.
To
So
who? To who?
so one of them, Alyssa, she makes outbound cold calls to qualified realtors to schedule appointments for me and a couple of LOs on the team. So she works about 4 hours a day, and she schedules up to 20 appointments a week.
Wow.
And these are cold calls that she does. So she usually gets 1 to 2 an hour, depending,
I
but
get it.
so that's her main task that she works on. I have another virtual assistant that she's calling on old leads and scheduling appointments with people that raise their hand that may want to buy, sell, or refinance in the near future, and or know somebody who does. So she calls on like old lead lists, things like that. Real estate agent partners that we have, she'll call on their lead list too, their database list. So just kind of drumming up business that way.
So when they're making these calls to say like old leads and whatnot, like are they actually pulling apps or are they just setting appointments for you or what is that?
They're setting appointments. Yep.
Okay, okay.
They're setting them right in the calendar. So they have full access to the calendar. They set the appointments, they schedule it, they do all the reminders, everything.
So no actual mortgage stuff, just like appointment setting.
Correct. Yeah.
So dude, let me do the math. So what is a what is a what are you paying like let's call it a grade A phone caller in the Philippines. What do they get paid an hour?
$5 to $6 an hour.
All right, so let's round up and say six.
Okay.
So which by the way, so I remember the first time you and I were talking about this, I kind of thought, well, that's kind of uncool, man. $6 an hour. And then you reminded me, hey, Carl, a dozen eggs over there is like a quarter. And
Yeah.
that I think minimum wage is like a buck 80
changed a little bit. It's like $2, but it's $2 a day is the average wage.
$2 a day is the average wage.
Yeah. So
Holy
it's
cow! So at
huge.
$5 an hour, they're like smoking. I mean, that's like
Yep.
super cool. Okay, I get it. Yeah, everything's just cheaper, right? Everything. It's all
Yes.
virtual. Just like you buy a house in San Diego, it costs one price. You buy a house in, outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, super cool place, just cheaper, right? It's just the
Yeah.
economics of it. So, all right. So if I'm paying this person $5 an hour and they're averaging one scheduled appointment for me of a qualified agent or an old lead or somebody that ghosted me, they bring them back and we're going to set an appointment for a loan application or to have that, virtual coffee meeting with a real estate agent. In essence, I'm paying $5 per appointment. Who wouldn't
Right.
do that? Who wouldn't do that? Like,
Yeah. It's crazy.
I mean, you think about what an appointment's worth. Would you pay $5? Hell, people are paying 50, $100 for a lead on
Right.
Zillow, and that's not even an appointment. That's just a lead, which we all know that 15, 20 people, 20 different loan officers are calling them.
Exactly.
So that's certainly cost effective. So how does that work? So on the phone, how does that work? What like how do they dial out? Like how does that work? How's the phone system work?
So I use phone burner and I have a Ring Central office phone number.
What phone number? Like if he or she was to call me right now, what phone number shows up
It's
on
going
my
to be
phone?
my local number. So if you call back, you're going to get my office.
Okay. So nobody ever calls them back. If they do, they're calling your office and they know that she's making these outbound phone
Correct.
calls today. And so that's likely to be a realtor. That's likely to be uh,
Right.
an old lead. I got it. So, I don't mean to sound uncool or anything, but how do they sound?
Man, you hear about Filipino assistants and you can hear some that don't sound good and then you hear some that sound unbelievable. The ones that I have and the ones that we help hire for loan officers, they sound like you and I. They sound, I mean, it they
Well, hopefully better than me, but I understand what you're saying. I know what you're
they
saying. Yeah.
they sound like the girl next door.
Yeah.
I've had realtors show up at our office looking to talk to one of the assistants that's literally in the Philippines and they had no idea.
I've heard stories about that where somebody brings cookies in to Debbie
Right.
and come to find out Debbie is in the Philippines. And hey,
Yep.
I got a question for you. And again, I hope it's okay to ask this, but I've always wondered this. Why the Philippines? Like what I mean, they're awesome people, as is people in Norway, London, and Zimbabwe. Like what it seems like Philippines is a hot spot for this kind of activity. How
Yeah, it's
come?
interesting. I always compare it to like here in the United States when teenagers get their first jobs. They get a job at like retail or fast food or something like that.
Yeah.
In the Philippines, their first jobs are in call centers. So they really learn that
Okay.
well, I mean, their English is a first spoken language since kindergarten, just like it is here. But they learn the art of making phone calls and handling objections and things like that. So it's real interesting. But to answer your question, I'm really not sure why it started there and it's so prevalent there.
Maybe it's called. A lot of people don't know that, but English is the first language there. And maybe that has something to do with I know some people I got some friends down in Miami and Steve, some of the loan officers on his team down in Texas, where there's a huge Hispanic population. They'll
Right.
get the VAs in where was that they were finding a lot of them. Was it Columbia? I can't remember, but or it wasn't Columbia. It'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, where they'd find virtual assistants, in South America,
Right.
because of the Spanish, speaking. And all right, so making phone. It seems like they could do nothing but make calls, and like that'd be really enough.
Yes.
I mean, that'd
Oh
be
yeah.
that'd be kind of it. What's some other things they do for you?
So mine, aside from making phone calls, she also, well, I alluded to it earlier with the calendar. She kind of runs the calendar. So she's scheduling appointments. She has full access to my calendar. She not only does she set appointments for me, but she also um, sends out the reminders and keeps me on track with what's coming up. So
Okay.
she'll remind me about a big appointment. She'll remind the other person, whether it's a phone call or a face to face or meeting with a client. So she helps run that calendar. Along with that, she also helps with the CRM. So I talked earlier about making outbound old lead calls and old database calls. She'll also send out emails like, the famous what is it, the 9-word email
Yeah. Hmm.
that I learned from you. And,
I learned from Dean, right? So yeah.
so she'll send that out and follow those up with phone calls. So she helps run the CRM. Kind of like when I think of how can I automate something and make sure it's done the same way every time? It's definitely not going to happen if I'm the one that's responsible for it.
Yeah.
But it is if she is. So like I teach classes to realtors, and she does everything. She does post class, she does pre class. She's the one that schedules the appointments with the title company. She's the one that sends out the marketing materials. She edits all the videos. She sends out the registration links, manages the agents that come in, sets them up on a standard operating procedure for like after the class. She enters them in the CRM. She friend requests them on Facebook for me. She sends them a note. It just like automatically happens every time the same way. So all I really need to do is teach the class. Uh, she tells me who's qualified and who's not, so I know who to follow up with. But they've already been followed up with like 5 different ways before I even make that first phone call. So things like that, anything that can be automated and done the same way every time.
So like, does she do things like on your social media? Like if I get a when you get a new contract in with a listing agent, like friend request them and the borrowers and the co-borrowers and things like
Yep.
that. Like, so she has access to your social media too.
Yes, yes. And she'll
Very,
send them a little note, via Facebook Messenger,
yeah.
telling them, "Hey, I was thinking about you, wanted to say hi."
So she uses two different phone systems, I would take it. So she's using one power dialer to make the outbound appointment setting things like for the
Yes.
qualified agents and the old leads. And then she must have like another phone number. Like if she's calling to set an appointment with me or I want to set an appointment, I give her a call. Do you have another phone system other than a power dialer that
So we use Ring Central. So she
okay, I got it.
has,
You mentioned
yeah.
that. Okay, I got it. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea.
So she's able, and every call that's made, it on the other end, it's a local number. It's our local number.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you pay them?
So I pay them through PayPal, and they send me an invoice every 2 weeks. It's a marketing expense. And I
Oh, yeah,
just
because there's no W-2 or
correct.
any of that. Just a market, just a like if I was paying a service to manage my social media,
Exactly.
they send you an invoice and you pay the bill, and
Yep.
so it's the same sort of thing right through PayPal. So yeah, I never thought about that. PayPal, I guess you can pay anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy on both ends.
You pay them once a week or every other week, or how does that work?
I pay them every 2 weeks. They send me their invoice, and they get paid every 2 weeks.
So like what does that come up to? Like if you're paying somebody every 2 weeks, like
So a
it,
full time 40 hour a week, about $5 an hour, and it's about $800 a month.
wow. So you get a full-time human
Full
being
time. Yeah.
that I don't have to pay unemployment tax and workman's comp tax. Nothing wrong with
Right.
all those things, right? They're all good things, but if we can avoid them on some of our helpers,
Right.
plus they're coming at $5 an hour. And frankly, I don't know. It's just the way I think about things sometimes. I'm helping somebody unbelievably well in in another country, and even though hey they
Yes.
might not be in the town, in my case of Palm Harbor, or where I'm at today is here in High Point, North Carolina. I tell you something else I found too is boy, they're hard workers.
Oh yeah.
They're like my
Very
burn
dedicated.
yeah. So let me tell you what happened on our end. So Bernadette, we found her about 5 years ago, and she's been work dude, she does like everything. like everything. She helps me with my calendar. She helps us with customer support. Like she does a lot of things. And her son just graduated college, and we just hired him.
Oh, wow.
And
That's awesome.
actually, I say we, Steve Kiles, just hired him to help him in his mortgage branch.
Nice.
And so it's really cool. Like I was on a Zoom meeting with Bernadette the other day, and I see him walk behind her, and she said, "Hang on a second, Carl," and he asked her a quick question, and she said, "Just go to this website, and you'll find it all there. Now get back to work." And so
That's
he, so I thought, "Atta
awesome.
girl, mom's, so yeah, I found like any drawbacks that you can think of, like, hey,
Well,
virtual's okay, except
the biggest drawback or the biggest mistake I've seen people make is trying out a virtual assistant from the Philippines and getting the wrong person,
mm,
because then, they'll say, well, it doesn't work, or everybody has
mm,
an accent. I can tell you, the team that works with me, they sound like us.
yeah,
And so it's really about getting that right person. That's what's
yeah.
important.
And I've always found like an accent, um, as long as I can understand them easily.
Right.
Because like we've got people on our team from, well, frankly, we got a guy in Boston, and we have a harder time understanding him than
Yeah.
like Bernadette. Um, can I tell she's Asian? Yeah, but like, so so what? And just like we've got
Right.
people in Jamaica. Frankly, I think that little bit of color in their dialect, I think it enhances our experience with our customers. I really do.
Right.
And so we got some people from we got a couple Canadians, the A, and
Yep.
I don't know, I kind of like that part. I think it adds a
Agree.
little flavor. I do. And we got a lady where's she at? I think she's in Alabama, has that classic Southern drawl. And I don't know. I've always thought, it, it just adds a little flavor. So I don't care if somebody sounds like they're from somewhere other than Palm Harbor, as long as I can completely crystal clear understand every single syllable, every single
Yes.
word, and I'm not having to listen in, lean in and listen in. As long as I can do that, man, I just don't care. Like
That's
I think
true.
I
Yeah.
think that's true for most people. It's I think where people get put off is they'll have inbound telemarketers, and they've read a script 10,000 times that day, and they just sound like a monotone robot. I think
Yes.
that's what puts people off, is that monotone robot, zero personality, just because they use the same 1 minute script 1,000 times for the last 2 years, and they just who
Yep.
wouldn't, right? I'd become a robot too, saying the same thing every time. So I think that's the biggest. We get these impressions from people calling us that maybe are a little burned out, or they just lack the enthusiasm in their voice, kind of things. That makes
Right.
sense.
Agree. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So,
that's getting that wrong person. Yeah, you've got to
yeah.
get the right person.
You know what? I think you hit the nail on the head. Getting the wrong person is problem number one, and problem number two is keeping that wrong person too long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Hmm. How hard is it to find somebody?
Um, Finding the right person is difficult. It's there's a lot of ways and websites you can go to try to find virtual assistants. But it is difficult to find the right person. That's the key. That's why we help loan officers, you know.
How many virtual assistants have you helped hire over the years? Would you say?
Gosh, I think I would say close to 1,000 or more.
You wait. You've literally helped hire, either hired or helped hired, like literally 1,000 virtual assistants.
Yep.
Holy cow!
Yeah, over the last gosh, 6, 7 years, we've been
Wow.
helping hire for loan officers.
Wow. So, hey, if I want to hear more about how that works, like how do I where do I get some information about? If I want you to help me hire a virtual assistant, what do I do?
The best thing is to have a quick strategy call. No cost to anything, just to talk and have a strategy call. And you can do that by going to remoteassistantscout.com and signing up for a strategy call.
And we just go over like, here's some of the things they do. What are you looking for? And maybe
Yep,
that's a good fit. And frankly, maybe oh no, you need to go find a local or whatever, whatever that thing is. So
exactly. Just kind of looking for what needs you
yeah.
have and what you're looking to accomplish and who
So,
you're.
dude, I know I've sent a good handful of loan officers over to you to help them out. I had no idea that you'd literally hired 1,000 people over the last 5 or 6 years. That's impressive. And I think our listeners know. I don't know that I need to say this, but I think our listeners know that on the podcast we don't do any paid endorsements or anything like that.
Right.
So I don't write you a check, you don't write me a check, and you charge me and I charge like this is just you're a great resource. You've been one of the coaches in the Freedom Club forever, and one of the leaders in the mortgage marketing animals, literally almost since day one. And you just took a knack for this assistant thing, so you've always been our go-to person. So, do you find it? Is it any easier, any harder than in the last few years? Is there any really difference, or have you just gotten better at it, or
I have a really, really good team and a partner, Gerard, that is in the Philippines, and he's so good at what he does, identifying personalities. And we do everything: the background checks, the disc assessments. We help find the right person as opposed to trying out somebody, seeing if they work. I
what
mean,
if they don't
it's.
work out? What I hire,
Yep.
and I know we and it's not meant to be disrespectful, but we typically Americanize their names, or they Americanize it for us, typically. Um, but let's say you help me hire Bob. We always pick on the Bobs of the world. I don't know why. I just, if there's a Bob listening, no
Right.
disrespect meant. But if I hire Bob in the Philippines and he does, and and he's working for me for like a week or two, and it's not working out, like what happens then?
Oh, we definitely replace them. Yeah. No cost, nothing. We it's guaranteed. So if they're not. Yeah.
How long, like, how long before I know if I got the right or wrong person? Like, how long do I give it?
So that is a really, really good question, because we tend to have big hearts and not want to fire somebody and hope they do better. You're going to know in a couple weeks if it's the right person. Usually somebody waits at least a month or so. We guarantee it up to 60, 90 days, but if it's, you're going to know in a few weeks
Okay.
if they're
I
just not the right fit.
I guess on the phone thing, if they're setting appointments of the right fit, and if they're not,
Right.
they're not. What about if I what if they like they're making phone calls for me? What if they need help like I need to tell them what to say and whatnot. Like what is there a resource or how do we do that?
So with scripting.
Yeah, like hey, I want you to help me hire a VA, and I want them calling real estate agents, or I want them calling my past database, or I want them calling old leads. Like
Right.
how do we bring them up to speed?
So we actually, anybody that comes through Mortgage Marketing Animals or Freedom Club to us, not only do they get a discount, but they get a initial training. So they're trained on that and provided all the scripts and everything.
Very cool. Yeah, is that online? I take it on. You're not flying them over here, of course. That's
Right.
online.
It's
I
all
take it.
done
Yeah,
Zoom, like you talked about Zoom.
yeah.
They not only do the training, they are provided the scripts. The majority of them have experience making phone calls anyway, and many have
Mm,
experience in the mortgage field. So that really, really helps. Like we're not just hiring somebody off the street that's never made calls before.
I got it.
They have experience. They can handle objections.
Heck,
But
they might tell me the best way to do it. Like I'll say,
that's
hey, try it this way. They go, well, I can do that, but in my
yes,
old job, we were doing this and we had pretty good results with it. So they could actually bring me their past experience many times. So
exactly.
really
Yes.
cool. Really cool. So how does it work, man? Like so I reach out, I have a call with you. We discuss what I'm looking for. We decide it's a good fit, and then you go find me somebody. But then once you connect me up with virtual assistant Bob, and you kind of bring them up to speed about what to say and how to help me, then you kind of step back, and you're not involved. Like
Right.
I don't pay you on an ongoing basis. I'm just now I'm back. I'm paying my assistant $5 an hour, and it's on my pay, not my payroll, because
Right.
it's a marketing expense. But that $5 an hour, I'm just paying them directly. There's no override or anything like that, and we're good to go. Is that how it works?
That's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's other companies that you pay them and you're upcharged and all of that. No, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, they're let go to you and you get to, manage them. You pay them direct, everything. Yeah.
Good stuff,
It's
man.
like
What was that?
having a team.
What was that site again, Richard?
It's remoteassistantscout.com.
Richard, you're a good man, brother. We've been dear friends for a long time, and I just want to let you know I really appreciate you. You helped. I had no idea, frankly, just being honest, how many, but I know you've helped a lot of loan officers in the industry, and man, that just helps everybody because they write more loans, and then they get more processors, they get more other assistants
Right.
on the way to work because they making good money. They go buy a new car, and the guy that sold the car then goes buy a new pair of shoes, and it just has this. I love the butterfly effect or the trickle effect or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
So
Well said.
you're helping a lot of people, man. You're making a difference. I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you, man.
All right, gang. Go check it out, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot, Richard.
Thank you.